Alright guys, HyDra here again. So I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. With all this superstar drama continuing over the last few days, ACHES decides to put together his full tier list of CDL players, and the superstar category at the top to players that are barely pro right at the bottom. Dashy, however, does not necessarily agree with this and says that those that he puts in the all-star category, not necessarily superstars, actually might be better than those that ACHES believe are in the very top tier of competitive players. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, Hex Scump lawsuit update against Activision Blizzard. Not technically an OpTic lawsuit, but, you know, it ain't too far away. Now, we saw updates the other day from Ben J. Asim that, well, it wasn't necessarily from his updates, but he'd found evidence, let's say, on the official publications, and here's another one right here, on the progression of this. So, basically, a few days ago now, they're moving this into arbitration, where they discuss with, like, an arbitration committee or lawyers or whatever, what the next steps are going to be. So, that means, as a result, that the court has dismissed the case instead of the stay proposed by both parties. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that, oh yeah, it's chalked, they had no case, it's all over. That doesn't mean that. As Ina actually says, just explained above, the case is dismissed because they were already in arbitration proceedings that Activision had initiated versus Hex and Scump. The parties agreed that the arbitrators in those proceedings would determine whether the clause requiring arbitration of disputes is enforceable. So, you know, she's an actual lawyer. She ain't just Twitter lawyers like the rest of us. So, okay, I'll take her word for it. But yeah, it doesn't seem like the fact that this case has been dismissed actually really means anything for the immediate term. They're going to go to arbitration. We'll see what happens next, and therefore maybe, depending on the outcomes of that, we'll see where it goes. Feeling is that probably, look, Hex and Scump brought a lot of things against Activision Blizzard, maybe more things to come, who knows. Some of them will probably not go anywhere, probably the most of them won't go anywhere. Some of them may go somewhere, and I guess we'll see based on these arbitration proceedings. I guess the point on this really is that we're probably not going to know what's going to happen here, right? Because this arbitration stuff is, I imagine, happening in private, behind the scenes. We're not going to get any details and information on that publicly for probably quite some time, so this may be one of the last updates we get in a bit of time on this story, but we'll see if Hex and Scump themselves ever say anything, or if their lawyers allow them to say anything as this trends onwards. Now, OpTic play the Subliners this weekend. Both teams 6-0 right now. OpTic on the season have a better map win-loss. Well, they at least have more maps won. They actually don't have a better map win-loss in terms of percentages, because New York have dominated many of their recent matches, but of course they got slammed out top 12 at the major. So third for OpTic, fourth for New York. Of course, the winner of this gets the number 1 seed. Maybe the number 1 seed doesn't massively matter, because you either play the 7th team in the qualifiers or you play the 8th team, and it's unclear whether any of those are going to be an easier or harder matchup. Either way, you're going to be massively favoured. But the number 1 seed is nice, because when you get to the event, everyone you play during the tournament to that point, you get the veto advantage, right? So when you're the, well, you don't get the veto advantage necessarily, but when you're the number 1 seed, you get to choose whether you go Team A or Team B in the vetoes, which isn't a massive advantage, but it does mean that you can decide how the veto process is going to play out, and you can choose the one to your advantage. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Online, they just do a coin flip to determine who gets to choose Team A, Team B. On LAN, pretty sure it's still determined by the seeding versus your opponent. So number 1 seed is still nice. Number 2 seed ain't too bad either, but one of those two teams is going to get that. This I thought was pretty funny between Tej and Ziddy here as well, because, yeah, obviously we know that the Ravens, they might not be getting paid the most amount of money right now, and I do wonder, like, what the world would look like if one of these guys was to become general manager for a day and, you know, trade Clay to Los Angeles Gunners or something. But we know that trades in the CDL are rather difficult to come by. Speaking of some of those top matchups, though, I thought this is pretty cool that Call of Delco put together, actually, on the top 4 matchups. Now, okay, this looks a bit ugly, to be fair. Maybe we could do a better job putting this together, but to be fair, there's lots of things to share on this, so it's kind of difficult to do so. In previous seasons, we've seen more like a circular thing, when if you just ignore the crosses in the middle here, it just looks like a straight up circle that goes around. And we have sometimes seen in the past that, let's say, Thieves would always tend to beat OpTic, but OpTic would always tend to beat FaZe, and FaZe would often quite always tend to beat Thieves, right? So you'd get these kind of individual matchup things. And let's not forget that JP Chris said not that long ago now, let's say after Major 1, so I guess it was quite a while ago, but after Major 1 he said that he feels like OpTic will match up better against Toronto than they do against FaZe, and so far that seems to be the case. They beat Toronto, the one time they've played so far. That's 1-0 for OpTic up against Toronto, but FaZe have beaten OpTic 3 times they played during the course of Stage 1, once in the qualifiers, twice in the major. So OpTic's overall record against the top 4 teams is 1-4, Toronto's is 3-2, New York's is 2-1, FaZe's is 4-3, but the overall records are as follows. So Toronto have the lead against both the Subliners and against FaZe, as do the Subliners against FaZe and OpTic, both 1-0 on both occasions. I guess as this continues to trend forwards and we get more and more matches between these top teams, as we most certainly will, we're going to start to see more of a picture here in terms of who wins in certain matchups, because right now it seems like FaZe, at least during Stage 1, had OpTic's number for sure, but Toronto had FaZe's number until maybe the most recent games they've played. So very interesting to see how this trends forwards, because these are clearly the teams that are going to win like all the events this season. It's tough to imagine otherwise that somebody else is going to win an event rather than one of these teams. But the individual matchups, like which team matches up well against the other teams of these 4, that is going to be massively important to who actually ends up winning some of these tournaments. Now, we've got to talk about TJ Halley before we get into this Dashy stuff. Firstly, he tweeted this the other day. Frustrated that there's not much going on right now in terms of players actually grinding the game. Why is there more to play in the off-season outside of scrims than during the season? Because, yeah, lots of players not doing much 8s and stuff at the moment. But also he tweeted this out. Everyone has sound EQ online. I am snaking. Now, this is actually a really interesting talking point. We know that back in December, whatever it was, when Zuma decided to put his foot down and say, you know what, guys, it's time to stop all of this BS with regard to the snaking stuff. They GA'd snaking. Thank God. But at the same time, they also GA'd sound EQ. We know that last year and the year before, and even the year before that, right, sound EQ, loudness equalization was a massive talking point that was giving people superhuman hearing online. Now on LAN, this was disabled officially by the league. They wouldn't allow players to use it on LAN at the actual tournaments themselves, but online it was free game, anyone could use it. The issue is, if you snake, you can get seen. Sound EQ was GA'd by the pros at the same time back in December, whenever it was initially. But what if one player decided, you know what, I'm going to turn the sound EQ back on for one of my online matches? Is anybody going to know? Possibly not. And arguably over the last couple of months, more and more players have turned this on behind the scenes to such an extent that now there are players abusing sound EQ all over the league. Now, as the Scrappy says, 1 week, brother, keep your head. Kind of saying, look, we've got one more weekend until LAN, we'll get back there again. The feeling is for me that I wouldn't be surprised at all if lots of players in the league right now are effectively, you know, bringing the sound EQ cheats out yet again, because who's going to know? So a very interesting one to keep your eyes on here, really, in terms of maybe certain players, their awareness gets somewhat better after being a little bit suspect so far this season. I don't really know, but definitely one to look for, because would you be surprised if some of these teams, having got smoked online and they need every single 10 CDL points they can get, are starting to whack the sound EQ back on? I wouldn't be surprised at all, because who's going to know apart from theories? Tough to come up with proof either way, but TJ thinks that, yep, people are breaking the GAs by using sound EQ, so maybe it's time to start snaking as well and breaking that GA, and then potentially all hell is going to break loose. But we've got to talk about this in Paddy P here. 8 tiers, no misses, no order within the tiers. So this is what he comes up with as his official, well, according to Paddy P, tier list of CDL players right now. So he's got challengers calling at the bottom. I don't think Nastie should be in it personally. I think that's a bit unfair, to be honest. I think he's been better than this. But he's got plenty of players down here, like even Big Wake and ACHES and aBeZy and, you know, Afro, Fellow, obviously plenty of the Gorillas guys purchased down here, of course, as well, in Challengers Calling. These are CDL caliber players that he's got. So Priestahh, Asim, couple of the Miami guys. Obviously, we've got, this is Geo, this is Kremp, of course, Clayster's even down here as well. So it depends, as we said the other day, on your definition of what you consider to be a star player, because the way that ACHES is looking at this is purely on ability, which is certainly one way to look at it. My opinion is slightly different. I think in terms of superstar level players, they are faces of the league to some extent, and they transcend the sport to some degree. Some of you guys agreed with me on that, some of you guys didn't. That's perfectly fair enough. But I think fair enough makes his side that he's just going to go purely ability-wise and split them up as follows. So solid but replaceable, good pieces. He's got Nero here, he's got Ghosty, he's got Slash. And to be fair, outside of a couple of things, I don't mind the system X. I think he's done a pretty reasonable job of what he's intending here to do. I will say that my feeling is that Skyz, I don't think he's getting underrated much here by getting put in the stars category, because being a star is still very impressive. But like Skyz does just tend to fry. I don't know what more Skyz has to do to be considered like a really top player, because I don't know, he does very well like every season, drops good numbers, and then people sometimes overlook him a little bit, but I feel like given the circumstances, Skyz here is probably fair. Rising stars, we've got Gwyn, we've got Lins, obviously 2 Rookie of the Year candidates, and then he goes for the star tier. So he has 17 star players, of which 5 are superstars, of which another 5 are all-stars, he describes. This is what the point I was making to you guys yesterday, right? That if you consider there to be 10 superstars, then you then have to have a separate category with your, whatever your higher tier than superstar is, right? Because you can't tell me there's 15, 17 superstars and not say that you can't differentiate further than that. Because you definitely can differentiate further. Like, let's say you agree that these 17 players are your superstars, even though, there's some debate on that. You can always be more specific in terms of which players are the real creme de la creme. So anyway, all-stars, aBeZy, Drazah, CleanX, Shotzzy, and Dashy. That's his all-stars. And his superstars, Simp, Shotzzy, Cell, HyDra, and Pred. And in terms of raw, pure ability, I think you can argue this. As I've said previously, mine is different because I'm kind of basing some other things involved, but, I don't think that ACHES is doing a terrible job. At the same time, there is some debate on this, right? Because of course, TJ, my guy's down here. Where even is TJ? Actually, let's find him real quick. He doesn't even... Oh, yeah, here he is. Solid but replaceable. Which, I don't know. Like, is that disrespectful or not? I guess it's a question. And as TJ says, you'd be in the same tier that I'm in if I made a tier list of X-Device employees. So TJ maybe not so happy with where he got placed. But, I mean, look, is TJ a solid but replaceable player? Probably yes, let's be honest here, right? Does he go any higher than that? Obviously, in his opinion, he's going to say, yeah, like he should be a star or a good piece or something. But, I don't know, I don't think he's done too bad by the guys involved. And of course, we know ACHES is not afraid to give his opinion and put many players in that lowest category. But as Dashy says, and this is also an interesting point, that maybe it is quite difficult to differentiate between the superstars and the all-stars. Like, Dashy's perspective is, okay, how about we do a show match then? Give it those 5 superstar players versus our 5 players in, I don't know, Black Ops 4 would be nice, but even this game is fine, because this is also going to be based on this title. I think it's generally ACHES' opinion. It's like, okay, this is the tier list of players as it stands in this title at the present day, not really counting previous games. Otherwise, maybe Clay would be higher and these other things. But Dashy believes that Team All-Stars is wiping the floor with Team Superstars, right? So even let's say you take 4 of the 5 and you pick up, or you pitch the All-Star team against the Superstar team. Is it clear-cut the Superstar team is better? I don't think that's clear-cut actually at all. So maybe you can argue that there's like 10 superstars and there's no discrepancy, although I don't think you can really. I think there's always going to be some better players, but in terms of putting the teams together, there's maybe a question on that. So I would love to see a show match of this. Absolutely right. That would be banger content if it could be done in the off-season or something, right? Dashy says Team All-Stars wiping the floor with Team Superstars. And obviously, as Kismet says, Team Stars can take this whole list in hand-to-hand combat respectfully, of course. So that's where Kismet, of course, resides in that star category with a couple of the other Toronto guys. And obviously, Attach and Kenny thrown in there for good measure as well. But very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.
Yes, it's the most beautiful thing you could ever do with another person, is have a baby. But just know, you're fighting for attention the whole time, bro. Honestly, I might have to... I've been giving my daughter the stink eye a little bit.
Dude.
No, I kind of resent her. I kind of resent her and shit.
Nah, you're out of your shit. You're out of your mind, bro.
Like, maybe she'll be a little cooler when she's older, but right now, bro, she's kind of on my shit.
She'll be cooler when she's older?
Bro, tell me this. I can't even nuzzle up on Haley's bosoms because milk will come out. Like, what?
Oh my God.
I mean, that sounds kind of lit.
No, bro. No. She gets all the titty, and I'm just out here on the outskirts just looking for a crumb. But I can't even have that crumb because it's milky. I don't want it. So, long story short, my wife's being a total bitch.
Oh my God.
Yo, that just hits every time, bro. Like, you call your wife a bitch, you're guaranteed giggle from somebody.
Oh my